Okay, welcome back to the exciting book of Nehemiah, the appointed one of Yah. You know, we've been going through this book of Nehemiah, and we've been seeing how Nehemiah Yah had been utilizing him to actually rebuild Jerusalem, rebuild its walls, and fill in the breaches of the walls. And Nehemiah, you know, he took on this task, and we've been with him through the ups and downs thus far of trying to accomplish this. And we've likened the story of Nehemiah unto our present day situation, a time in which the temple of Elohim is also in shambles. And we spoke of the spiritual temple, and we spoke of spiritual Jerusalem, and even us spiritual Israel, you know, and how we're in a very like situation as Nehemiah and his contemporary Ezra was during this time, and how we are in need of rebuilding the walls and rebuilding and establishing the gates and rebuilding the walls that Yahshua and his apostles set up from times past. You know, when we look at the faith, if anyone was to go through scripture, you know, and to look at the faith today versus what it was during that time, you can't help but to see that it's in disarray. You know, that it's just a fraction of what it used to be. And so we begin to talk about how Yah's reviving his sheeple today, and how they're coming around only to find the faith in these shambles. You know, and how the stones have been overturned, and how the walls have been torn down, and the city has been burnt. You know, but even as we've been speaking concerning this, it's time that, you know, we take responsibility to rebuild the walls, to restore the lives of the inhabitants. You know, to once again come into New Jerusalem, come into the kingdom of Elohim. You know, so, you know, this is to say the least quite an endeavor, even as it was for Nehemiah. You know, so it is for us. You know, we're living at a special time. During this time, we're seeing groups such as our own who are embracing Yahshua and embracing the teachings and instructions of Elohim, you know, in a way that hasn't happened in over 2,000 years. You know, so this is a very special time that we're living in. And it's not just happening here. It's happening all over the world. You know, all you have to do is get on the internet and start searching. It's happening worldwide. This has never happened before. This has not happened before since the time of the Messiah and his apostles, that folks are getting fed up and they're embracing the teachings of the Messiah and the teachings of the word of Elohim and wanting to adhere to them only. You know, I believe that we have a spirit of Nehemiah within our midst today in the form of Yah's Ruach Kadesh. Amen. And like Nehemiah, he's appointed of Yah to oversee the rebuilding of Jerusalem, even New Jerusalem. Even as we see the physical people going back to the physical land and trying to physically do things, there's also a spiritual people that's going forth that's trying to erect the spiritual stones, the spiritual walls, trying to repair the breaches in the spiritual walls, because trust me, they are there. There are many breaches within the spiritual walls of our faith today. And these walls can't do what they was purposed to do because they're in shambles. And they have to be restored. They have to be rebuilt. But they're not going to rebuild themselves. You know, first of all, you know, we have to gather the stones. And many of the stones are right in Scripture. They're lively stones. Even the apostles and the stories of the apostles and their testimonies, those are stones that we utilize to build these walls, whether you recognize it or not. You know, we need to take these stones and erect this thing the way it's supposed to be. And that's what this lesson today is about. You know, it's centered around Nehemiah chapter 7. But essentially, that's what it's about, because it's great to look at the historical aspects, but it's more enriching to look at the present day aspect. You know, what does this mean to me now today? Yeah, I know what happened in yesteryear, but what about now today? How does this apply to my life now today? In Nehemiah 7:1, it says, "Now it came to pass when the wall was built, and I had set up the doors, and the porters and the singers and the Levites were appointed." Now, in chapter 6, they completed the walls. So here it is in chapter 7, it's saying, now it came to pass when the wall was built. You know, it caused me to consider, is the wall built today? It caused me to consider, where is the wall? Where is our spiritual wall? What is our spiritual wall? What does it represent? I need to know, because I need somebody to hand me another brick. You know, because if it's not done, then you know we have some building to do. Amen. You know, so let's take a look into this notion and see what we can find. First of all, why are walls built to begin with? In 1 Samuel 25 verses 15 and 16, we read, "But the men were very good unto us." And just a backdrop, this is the story of David, and this is speaking to the time when they were watching over Nabal's men while they were harvesting, you know, which also speaks to our time, you know, spiritually. But it says in 1 Samuel 25, 15 and 16, it says, "But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversing with them. When we were in the fields, they were a wall unto us both night and day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep." So you see, they were a wall unto them. In other words, they were their protection. They were their protectors. Proverbs 18:10. "The name of Yahuwah is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe." See, this is what we trust in. We trust in the name of Yahuwah. Amen. You know, this is what we recognize as our strong tower. Verse 11 of Proverbs 18. "The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and as an high wall in his own conceit." See, the rich have the tendency to trust in their riches. They trust in their riches to come to their aid. If I have a problem, I just buy my way out of it. I just, you know, as the saying go out, throw some money at it. Right. Make it go away. Money is power. Money is this, money is that. Money is just a tool. And the love of it is the root of all evil. You know, but we hereby can see the scripture's take on a wall is protection. Walls are erected for the purpose of protection. Usually from those without. But in some cases, there are walls that are erected to keep folks protected from the folks within. You know, such as prisons and this sort of thing. You know, but whenever someone erects a wall, it's usually for the purpose of protection, and as well as privacy, you know. But generally speaking, especially in the sense of Nehemiah, the walls were erected for protection. Now, spiritually speaking, what and where are our walls of the kingdom of Elohim? What and where are the walls of our holy city, New Jerusalem, today? To put it another way, what and where is our protection today? Because that seems like, you know, it's a vital bit of information, is it not? You know? We need to know that so we can feel secure, so we can feel safe. Amen. You know, that's what the walls do. They give us security. They make us feel safe. You know, they protect us from the enemy. Well, in Yeshayahu 26, verses 1 through 3. Come on, first read Yeshayahu 26, 1 through 3.
In that day shall this song be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. Salvation will Elohim appoint for walls and bulwarks. Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation which keepeth the truth may enter in. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So hereby we learn, it says in that day, and you know, in this day, shall the song be sung in the land of Yahudah. You know, I want you to know that we are in the land of Yahudah, because Yahudah simply means the praisers of Yah. Those who praise Yah. Anyone in here that praise Yah? You know, we're in the land of Yahudah. You know, we have a strong city. That city is New Jerusalem. Salvation will Elohim appoint for the walls and bulwarks. So we see that salvation is to be our walls. Amen? Amen. Now, what is this word salvation? Well, salvation, this word salvation is actually Yeshua. Number 3444 in the Hebrew, meaning salvation. So in other words, Yeshua will Elohim appoint for the walls and bulwarks. And truly he has. Yeshua is our walls. Yeshua is our bulwarks. When we enter into covenant with Yeshua, the covenant of Yeshua protects us. The covenant of Yeshua defends us. See, we have to understand this, you know, because spiritually speaking, we need to know where our walls are. You know, we need to know so that we can feel safe. Amen. You know, so if we're in Yeshua, then we're within the walls of the city. Now, it says in verse 2, open ye gates, that the righteous nation which keepeth the truth may enter in. What is truth? The word. Amen. Yochanan 17:17. Thy word is truth. You know, so the righteous nation that keepeth the word of Elohim may enter in. So if you're not keeping the word of Elohim, then it's safe to say you may not enter in. Make sense? It says, thou will keep him in perfect peace. There go your safety. You can be at peace. Whose mind is stayed on thee because he trusteth in thee. Don't trust in your riches. Don't trust in your gadgets. Don't trust in your Smith & Wesson. But trust in Yah. Trust in Yah. Come on, next reader, read Revelation 21, 10 through 14, please.
And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain. And he showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from Elohim, having the glory of Elohim, and her light was unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as a crystal. And he had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at that 12 gate 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And on the east 3 great gates, on the north 3 gates, and on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the walls of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb.
Okay, now here we are at New Jerusalem. Amen?
Amen.
And here it is, Yochanan was showed that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven. This is spiritual Jerusalem, made for a spiritual people. Amen? Because flesh and blood shall not enter into the kingdom. Amen? So here it is, it says, and it had a great wall. It had a wall great and high. It had 12 gates. And at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the tribes of the children of Israel. So you see, the walls of the city are made from the children of Israel. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now it says on the east 3 gates, on the north, south, and east, west, north, and south. All had 3 gates. And it says the wall of the city had 12 foundations. And in them, the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Okay, so here it is, we see that these walls are made up of the children of Israel, but the foundations are made up of the apostles of the Lamb. So this isn't speaking of natural Israel per se, but Israel that was founded upon the apostles of the Lamb. Israel that was founded upon Yahshua. Can you see that? See, because the 12 foundations of the walls are the apostles of the Lamb. You can't have the wall without the foundations. The foundations are always laid first. That's why they're called the foundation. And we know the foundation of the foundations is Yahshua himself. Amen. But here it is. It says the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles. So here it is. The walls are founded by the 12 apostles, and from them, all the other parts of the wall are built up, which are made up of all of Israel. And this is why I teach that everyone who accepts the Messiah as their Adonai, as their king, are signing up to be Israel. Because the son of David is the rightful heir to the throne of Israel. And we know the Lamb of Elohim, Yahshua, our Messiah, is that son of David, is the rightful heir. And so we see these 12 foundations, they're established, and these walls are made up of the children of Israel. So here it is, a beautiful picture of how we're to be. So we are to let the teachings of the apostles of the Lamb be our foundation. Everybody see that? That's our foundation. And of course, their foundation is Yahshua, who is the word of Elohim. He's not just the word from Matthew to Revelation. He's the word from Genesis to Revelation. So this is very important to keep in mind. Now, walls are made up of stones, are they not? Now, what's meant by the term stone is that it's speaking to their hardness. They're hard to change. They're hard to alter. Once placed in mortar, they become unmovable and are expected to protect the inhabitants that take refuge within them. These are the attributes of a stone. And 1 Peter 2, 1 through 12 speaks to us about the living stones and how these living stones are built up in Yahshua. Now, Matthew 4, 1 through 4, my next reader, please.
Then was Yeshua led up of the rock into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards an hungered. And when the temple came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of Elohim, command these stones to be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Elohim. Ye also, as living stones.
No, that's good.
Oh.
Okay, so here it is. We have an account of Yahshua. We have an account of Yahshua being led up, by Hasatan, right? You know, he's been led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted. And we see who the tempter is. It's not Yahuwah, right?
Right.
Okay? And it says when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, you know, that the tempter came to him. And the tempter, you know, presented a challenge to our Messiah. He says, if thou be the son of Elohim, command that these stones be made bread. You know, y'all had me meditating on this. You know, at during he actually gave me this revelation a while ago, but at one point he had me meditating on this, and he showed me that, you know, that Yah met that challenge. You know, he did make those stones bread. You know, even those apostles, those disciples that he took, those stones, he made bread. You know, because stones ultimately typify people. As we see here in 1 Peter 2:5-8, it says, ye also as lively stones. Now he's talking about people, right? Are built up a spiritual house and holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim by Yahshua Messiah. Yahushua Mashiach. Wherefore also it is contained in the scripture, behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone. Now, was that talking about a stone or was it talking about our Messiah? Elect, precious, and he that believeth on him shall not be confounded. Unto you, therefore, which believe, he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner, and a stone of stumbling, a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. Okay, so here it is, we see that the stones are likened actually to people. And Yahushua did take stones and make them into bread. Those same stones are the bread, make up the bread that we eat now today, that we call the Brit Kadashah, or the New Testament scriptures. Amen. These were those stones that were made into bread. For bread speaks of the teachings and instructions of Elohim. And spiritually speaking, those stones were made into bread because this is how we obtained our teachings and instructions concerning our Messiah, concerning Yahushua. So he met that challenge. You know, and he took those stones and he made them into bread, and he's still taking stones and turning them into bread. You know, and that's what we have to realize, that these walls are made up of stones, and these stones are likened unto people. You know, these stones are actually people that make up this wall. Even as we sing in New Jerusalem, the walls were made up of Israel. The foundations of those walls was made up of the apostles. We're talking about people here. Spiritual people. Making up and building a spiritual city. Amen. 1 Corinthians 3:9-15. My next reader, please.
For we are laborers together with Elohim. You are Elohim's husbandry. You are Elohim's building. According to the grace of Elohim, which is given unto me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Yahushua Messiah. Now if any man build up this foundation, gold, silver, precious stone, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide which he has built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burnt, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire.
Okay, so verse 9 said, we are laborers together with Elohim. You know, it says, ye are Elohim's husbandry, ye are Elohim's building. Did you catch that? Ye are Elohim's husbandry. In other words, ye are his helpers. You are there to do a work for him. But at the same time, ye are Elohim's building. You know, you are these stones being built up into something made useful for Elohim. Amen. How? According to the grace of Elohim, which is given unto me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. You know, Yahshua and the apostles have laid the foundation, and we're to come behind them and build thereupon.
Amen.
Okay? This is what I'm trying to do here at Yeshurun. I'm trying to build upon the foundation that was laid. For no other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Yahushua Messiah. Okay? There's no other foundation. Everything is built upon Yahushua Mashiach, our El, our King. Now, if any man build upon this foundation, gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it. Remember when Yahshua was giving this parable of the sower and the seed, and he said, you know, some of the seed, you know, fell by the wayside, and when the sun came up, it scorched it, but it didn't survive because the sun scorched it because it had no root. Okay, this is what it's been spoken of. It says, when the day comes, you know, when it gets hot, the work shall be manifested, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work, what sort it is. You know, I'm trying to put some stones in place, you know, preferably some precious stones, overlaid with silver and gold even. You know, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some gold, some silver, some precious stones. See, because that wood, hay, and stubble, it's not going to withstand that fire for too long. You know, and when my work get tried, I don't want it to be burnt up. I don't want to suffer loss. You know, I want us to be able to stand. I want us to be able to endure. I want us to be like the sister's testimony, able to persevere through the suffering of the fire and still come out shining on the other end. You know, all your precious stones have to go through the fire in order to really shine. Even gold has to be tried in the fire. Silver has to be tried in the fire before they shine. You see gold in its natural state, you may throw it away. It don't look like gold, what we're used to. It's not all shiny. But after it goes through the fire, it comes out shiny. Same thing with the silver, same thing with the precious stones. They just look like ordinary rocks outside of the fire. But once you put that fire to them, then you see what they really are. You know, and we're all going to be tried by the fire. You know, and so this is the work that we're trying to put forth here. We're trying to build upon this foundation that has been laid with some precious stones, with some silver or some gold. We're trying to forego the wood, hay, and stubble, because that's only going to be here today, but it's going to be gone tomorrow. You know, it says, if any man's work abide, which he have built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. I don't know about nobody else, but I want a reward. You know, I would like a reward. I think I deserve a reward. I think a reward would be good. You know, if any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. Doesn't matter. Everything has to go through the fire. You know, so, you know, it's not as if I'm asking you all to do anything that I don't have to do. I have to go through the fire too if I'm going to persevere. You know, even though we're alive, we're called to be stones, which once placed, such as in a wall, become unmovable. See, you know, if you looked at those walls that was around those cities, they were made with these huge stones. Actually, it was all sizes of stones. They were large stones, small stones, you know, long as it was a stone. Long as when they shot them arrows with the fire on them, it didn't burn the wall down, it was cool. You know, you could get put into the wall. It didn't matter how big a stone you was. It just mattered that you were a stone. Amen? Amen. The little bitty stones was used to make the mortar. You know, so here it is. We want to be as those stones. We want to be in that wall. Now, everybody can't be a stone. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, you know, but those who are a stone, you know, we want to be placed in that wall, and we want to become unmovable. You know, stones aren't here today, but somewhere else next week or next month. You know, quite the contrary. Stones are very dependable. Those that are supposed to protect are not going to feel very, those that the stones are supposed to protect aren't going to feel very safe if the stones of the walls that supposed to protect them start running from the enemy before they do.
That's right.
How you going to feel if you in the city and the stones that's supposed to protect you, they take off before the enemy even get to them? You know, see, this is not the type of city that, see, we're lively stones, but we're still supposed to be stones.
Amen.
So even though we're alive and we can run, we're not supposed to run.
No.
You know, when Yah has set us, we're supposed to stay put.
That's right.
You know, that's where that suffering comes in at. Because even though you are alive and you do have 2 legs and 2 feet and you can take off and you may even want to, you don't. You stand there and you persevere through the attacks of the enemy. You persevere through the beating and the kicking and everything that comes up against the wall.
That's right.
And trust me, they throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the wall. See, this is why everybody can't be a stone. You know, but if we're going to be stones, if we want to be a part of that wall, then we have to learn the characteristics of the rock. We know who the rock is, right? I don't need to go there, right? I don't need to go there and let you know that Yeshua is the rock, you know, the rock of our salvation, right? You know, if we are going to be those stones, then we need to become as the rock. We need to take on the characteristics of the rock. We need to get put in place, and even though we can move, don't.
Yeah.
See, because he could have not died on that cross, but he did.
Amen.
He was unmovable from keeping the will of Elohim, his Father. You know, and we're to take on those characteristics and do likewise. You know, and by him doing that, you know, he set the example. You know, and the apostles who came behind him, they followed that example. And those of us who go up on that wall, going to have to likewise follow that example. To make a strong wall, stones must be placed one upon another, which is a picture of the burden bearers, each one carrying the load of another. Just picture that in your mind. The way a wall is built up, you're putting stones on top of one another. Each stone has to bear the burden of another stone.
That's right.
See, what that's saying spiritually is each one of us has to be responsible for one another. We have to be able and willing to put upon our back and carry the burden of those other stones that are around us. To be a stone in a wall, one must learn to depend upon another. You have to depend upon others. Being stones mean being hard in every aspect, hard to alter, hard to change, hard to crack or break. And once we're set, we must become impossible to move. Therefore, the stones of the wall ought not to be tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. When the wind comes, and it will, we're not to be tossed to and fro. Because if we are, we wouldn't make a good stone in the wall of the city, now would we?
No.
Ephesians 4:11 through 15 says, and he gave some apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors, and teachers for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Messiah. Till we all come in unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of Elohim unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Messiah. So what does that tell us? For one, it tells us that we're not all in unity, and we won't all come into unity until this thing is done. It also tells us, that Yah has a system. He's put some in place for the perfecting of the saints. He put some in place for the work of the ministry. He put some in place for the edifying of the body of Messiah. Why? Verse 14. That we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. But speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Messiah. See, we have to understand that as long as we're tossed to and fro by the doctrines, by every wind of doctrine, then we're as children. No children will be allowed to stand as a stone within the walls of the kingdom. Only mature believers which have learned to rely upon one another, which have learned to rely upon the other stones around them, will be given such an honor as to be upon that wall.
Amen.
We have to learn to trust the other stones. We have to learn to trust the foundation stones, which is the doctrines of the apostles, the teachings and instructions of the apostles. We have to learn to trust the stones that Yah has put around us, i.e. the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers. And you may say, well, Pastor Obadiah, there's a whole lot of people who claim to be those things that,
Amen.
I just don't think they are. I just don't think that, that they're what he had in mind. Well, how do you know? Yah has given us a measuring stick. He said, ye shall know them by their fruit. By their fruit ye shall know them. So get to know them. Get to see their fruit. He gave these five that the perfecting of the saints may come to be, that they might edify his body. I see these as the same stones that David picked up and slew Goliath with. One of them.
All right.
I see these as the same five stones that he would take one of them and he would slay Goliath, and then those who would come later in his kingdom would take the other four and slay his brothers and his descendants. There was 5 giants killed in the story of David, and he picked up 5 stones. He only used one.
That's right.
I think that's more than a coincidence.
Wow.
But I visualize these as the stones of the wall. They are there. They're put in place. They're set of Elohim, that those who reside behind the stone walls, that is within the city, might be protected. See, they're put in place so that the children, the women and the children and some of the other men might be protected. See, those that are on the wall, they take the brunt of the attack of the enemy. When the enemy comes up upon the city, the first thing they have to get past is the wall.
That's right.
They can't get to any of the inhabitants. They got to go through the wall first. See, these walls are put in place to protect the children of the kingdom. See, so those who have aspirations for being the wall, and I think, honestly speaking, I think the wall, they are there, and it seems like, nothing's going on. I'm just sitting here on this wall day in and day out. The enemy, sometimes he comes, sometimes he don't. And it takes a lot of patience. It takes long suffering. To sit there on that wall day in and day out. But it's a great job that they're doing, because they're protecting the inhabitants of the city. They're protecting the children of the city. They're protecting the weaker ones of the city. They're protecting the ones of the city that have other tasks to do. Everyone, wasn't made of stone. Everyone within the kingdom, you have the walls, and you have those that are within the walls. So spiritually speaking, we have to be able to see this, and we have to be able to recognize that the walls that Yah has put in place are there for our protection, for our edification, for our perfecting. And it's a great thing, I would think, to be able to go up to New Jerusalem and actually see your name written on one of those stones. How awesome would that be? Just like the apostles' names are written on the foundations. How awesome would it be that, under those 12, along those 12 gates, you find your name in the wall? Wouldn't that be awesome? That would be absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And sometimes, all it entails is just being righteous. When you stand for righteousness, you become a type of one of those stones. When you become unmovable for righteousness' sake, you become one of those stones. And you may not know all the people that you're protecting by standing strong in righteousness, even up under attack. And this is why it's so important, because you don't know all the ones that's inside that you're protecting. You never know, because when people find out that you put Yah's name upon you, they begin to look. They begin to watch. They begin to see if your walk match your talk. And if you are a good example of what righteousness look like, then you protect, especially if they're a believer, you protect their faith. Because they borrow strength from you. They'll lean up against you. Sometimes they'll push you and, and kick you and throw stuff at you because they're kids. But when you stand strong, you're doing the work of Elohim. When you stand strong in righteousness, you're doing the work of Elohim. And it doesn't matter, what that work may do, because a lot of those stones, they just don't do nothing but sit there. But that's enough. Because they're sitting there in righteousness. And that's enough. Now, it also says in Nehemiah 7:1, now it came to pass when the wall was built, and I had set up the doors and the porters. Now, the doors and the porters of the city. What are the doors? And what is the door? What is the porter? We know that Yahshua ultimately is the door, just as he is the foundation. But we read that there were 12 gates. Amen. So what is that door and what is the porter? You know, in Matthew 16, 17 through 19, come on next me to read Matthew 16, 17 through 19.
And Yeshua answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. Matthew 16:18. And I say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my ecclesia, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Matthew 16:19. I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven.
Okay, so hereby we see that, you know, Simon Bar-Jonah, you know, this comes, just a backdrop to the story, this comes right after Yeshua will say, you know, who do men say that I am? You know, and then Cephas or Peter or Simon Bar-Jonah would say, you know, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim. And Yahushua will answer and say unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah. Simon Bar-Jonah meaning hearing one, son of the dove, which represents the Ruach HaKodesh. You know, son of the Ruach HaKodesh, the one that's hearing of Elohim. He says, For flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto you that thou art Petros, or Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my ecclesia. So you see, you know, Cephas was maybe the second stone, you know, next to Yeshua. And it says, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. So here it is. Yah does use stones. And we are likened unto stones. And he says that I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom. Now we're going to go to Acts 2. And I'm going to have my next reader read 36 through 41. And we're going to see Cephas actually using these keys to the kingdom. And the purpose for going here and doing this is that we might see what the door is and who the doorkeeper was.
Therefore let all the house of Israel know assuredly that Elohim hath made that same Yeshua, whom ye have crucified, both Adonai and Messiah. Now when they heard this, they were pricked in their heart, and said unto Peter and to the rest of the apostles, Men and brother, what shall we do? Then Peter said unto them, Repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Yeshua Messiah, for the remissions of sin, and you shall receive the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh. For the promise is unto you and to your children and to all that are far off, even as many as the Adonai our Elohim shall call. And with many other words did he testify and exhort, saying, Save yourselves from this untoward generation. Then they that gladly received his word were baptized, and the same day there were added unto them about 3,000 souls.
Okay, let me digress a bit. You know, here it is, Nehemiah say, I have set up the doors and the porters. Now the Messiah, he also he set up himself as the door, and he set up Simon as the porter, or Peter, Petros, which means rock. You know, as the porter. Porter, the word porter speaks to being a doorkeeper. You know, that's all it means. You know, he's the doorkeeper, and hence being the doorkeeper, it only makes sense that you give the doorkeeper what? The keys. And so here it is, he's given the keys. And now, here in Acts 2:36, we see him utilizing the keys. You know, here it is, they're on the day of Shavuot, and the Ruach HaKodesh now fell upon them, and they're talking to the people, and Cephas tells them, Therefore let all the house of Israel know assuredly that Elohim hath made the same Yahushua whom ye have crucified, both Adonai and Messiah. And it says, when the people heard this, they were pricked in their heart, and said unto Peter and to the rest of the apostles, Men and brethren, what shall we do? What what do we do from here? We messed up. We understand. We messed up. You know, and that speaks to each and every one here, everyone across the globe. We've all messed up somewhere along the line. Amen? There's no one who was born perfect and walked this thing out perfect. You know, we all would have messed up. You know, so what do we do? And the doorkeeper tells us. It says, then Peter said unto them, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Yahushua Messiah for the remission of sins. And ye shall receive the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh. This is the door into the kingdom. Being baptized in the name of Yahushua Messiah. Oh, I'm sorry. Repenting and being baptized into the name of Yahushua Messiah. See, and this is something that that has kind of been lost now today. You know, folks really don't know how to get into the kingdom. To you know, first of all, they got to find it. You know, because it says, straight is the gate, narrow is the way that leadeth unto life, and few be that find it. First, you got to find it. Then it tells you you got to strive to get into it. Strive to enter in at the straight gate. You know, so once you got to find it first, and then once you find it, then you got to fight to enter into it.
Amen.
You know, so and here it is. We have Peter actually utilizing the keys, opening the door, and letting some folks in. But you got to come in via repentance and being baptizoed, you know, which is the Greek word here. You know, repent, be sorry for your past sins, be sorry for what you've done, you know, and be baptized. Now, I just want to talk about that baptism for a minute, because so many people believe that you just get dipped in the water and someone dip you in and yank you out. And even though the word can mean to dip, it can. You know, that's not the fullness of what it means.
No.
You know, and many of you all may have heard me say, you know, that there's an ancient writing that speaks to baptizo perfectly. You know, and it's actually a recipe. It's a recipe of how to make pickles. And it tells that you take the cucumber and you baptizo it into the vinegar solution. Now, I ask you, if you take a cucumber and you dip it into a vinegar solution and pull it back out, what are you going to have?
The cucumber.
You're going to have a wet, dripping cucumber. Cucumber that's dripping with vinegar solution. I mean, you've accomplished nothing but a wet cucumber. That's not what baptizo meant. That wasn't the fullness of what it meant. You know, baptizo meant to submerge. You know, and it was spoken of like that of submarines. It meant to go in and stay in until there was a merging of the two. You know, so in other words, if we're going to baptizo this cucumber, we're going to put it into the vinegar solution, and we're going to put a top on it, and we're going to allow it to remain there until there's a merging of the two. There's a merging of the cucumber with the vinegar solution. Okay? So when we pull that once cucumber out, it should no longer be a cucumber. Will it be simply the vinegar solution? No. It will be a merging of the two. That merging of the two is what we call a pickle. You know, hence we don't call it a wet cucumber. We don't call it, you know, vinegar. We call it a pickle because it's not the vinegar, but neither is it the cucumber. It's a new creation. See, and this is the same thing that is supposed to happen when we're baptizoed. We're supposed to be submerged into Yahshua. Into what are we getting baptized into? The name of Yahshua, Messiah. Okay? For the remission of sins. So we're being baptized into the name of Yahshua, Messiah. Okay? And this being baptized into the name isn't just I baptize thee in the name of Yahshua the Messiah, and pull you back out. That's just like that pickle being dipped into the vinegar solution. You've accomplished nothing. See, but when you go into the name of Yahshua, that is the character of Yahshua, the reputation of Yahshua, the authority of Yahshua, and you remain there until you're merged with Yahshua, then when you're brought out of Yahshua, you will never be Yahshua, but you won't be you who went in either. You will be a new creation in Yahshua. You see how that works? See, now, another aspect of baptizo that doesn't get too much publicity is baptizo was also meant identification. It was also a means of identification. So in other words, when you are baptizo into Yahshua, you become identified with Yahshua. See, and this is why you have all the witnesses around. Because they can identify whether you were just a wet cucumber or if you were truly a new creation. But the baptizo also speaks to identification. So you're being, from the time that you come out, from the time that you're merged with Yahshua and you come out, you don't come out alone. You're identified with Yahshua. What Yah showed me was this analogy. Imagine Israel out in the wilderness, right? They're out in the wilderness, inhabiting a place on the earth that is, in all actuality, was uninhabitable, right? They were out there living in a land that was unlivable. They should have starved, but Yah gave them food from heaven. They should have died of thirst, but Yah brought them water from a rock. Okay? So, this is, imagine someone's out there, and now you have all these nations, everybody's hearing about this all around the world, right? Everybody's hearing about this people that's living for years, for decades, out in the middle of a wilderness, and it's really impossible, but they're doing it. So can you imagine how many people would have came from near and far to see that? Now imagine yourself going through the wilderness, or you come to see this and you say, well, I gotta see this close up. I want some of that. I want to see what that's all about. So you go to Israel, you walk up on their camp in the middle of the wilderness, and you say, hey, how y'all living out here? How y'all surviving? What y'all eating? What y'all drinking? And they say, come on in and see. Come on in, check it out. This is what baptism does. Now, they tell you, they say, you can come on in, but there's a condition. But if you come on in, then you have to live as we live. You have to be like unto us. And, okay, now you get there, and you may say, okay, well, I done came from the ends of the earth to see what y'all about. I heard about y'all. Okay, now that I'm here, okay, I'll play along. I'll be like y'all. So, I'll live by y'all law, and I'll do as y'all do. You agree to that? Okay? Now that's like that baptism. What you're saying is, now from that point on, when Yah says, okay, time for everybody to get up and go, you get up and go too. Because you're with them. If somebody see you, they're going to consider you an Israelite. Why? Because you're with them. So you become identified with them.
Amen.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
See, this is what baptism does. it causes you to become identified with Yahshua. You know, now it comes time for Pesach, to keep the Passover. You know, and everybody's all gung-ho about this big festival, you know, and you gung-ho too, just because everybody else gung-ho. Everybody else happy, so you happy too. Hey, yeah, Pesach, we about to do this, you know. And they say, whoa, wait a minute, you can't do this. Well, why not? Oh, because, you know, you're not one of us. Well, what you mean I'm not one of y'all? You know, when people look at me, they call me an Israelite now. You know, I walk like an Israelite. I talk like an Israelite. You know, how come I'm not an Israelite? Huh? Wait a minute. You confusing me. You told me that I can come on in and, you know, as long as I do and say, yeah, you're welcome. See, but, you know, we in this for life. We've committed. You haven't. You just checking it out. You free to go anytime you get ready. There's nothing holding you here. You can go back to the land you came from whenever you get a hunkering. This here, this Pesach thing, this is for those who are committed to our Elohim, who are committed to Israel, who are committed, you know, who will go and fight for us, who will lay down their lives for us. You know, this is what this is about. You know, you haven't signed up for that. You know, you coming in and you checking things out, and that's fine, and you're more than welcome to, and you can stay in that capacity as long as you like. You know, but if you want to partake of Pesach, then what you have to do is commit. See, and this is what the covenant of Yahshua is about.
Amen.
See, this is why you enter into covenant with Elohim. When you enter into covenant with Elohim, then that's the end all be all. Now you're an Israelite. Now you can partake of Pesach. You know, so the baptism just is the door to get you in, to get you identified with them. It doesn't necessarily make you one of them. But when you commit, you know, and their welfare becomes your welfare, their trouble become your trouble, their Elohim become your Elohim,
That's right.
then you're allowed to partake of Pesach. So what of the singers and the Levites that were appointed? Well, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. That's all I have for you today.
Right. Yeah.
Pray with the blessing.